Hello, this is my recording for the final project. It will probably not be under 3 minutes, but I'll see how quickly I can make it happen. So in this particular project's case, it's been difficult because APIs love to be behind paywalls, so that's why it's out of 3, because I had to go through so many ideas, but I was able to explore a whole bunch of different ideas before settling on this one. Quite a bit of this course has been defined by needing to find your own materials, where the book frequently fails, so I've gotten pretty adept at that and have been able to optimize things quite a bit. And so on. I still get frustrated quickly when trying to deal with other people's problems, but I have been able to sort out multiple issues in the group projects, and collabs actually did work pretty well in this class. Divide and conquer, break it into parts, know the variables, know the start and end states, build in from there. I actually have a bit of an example here where I was trying to figure out how to resize something both horizontally and vertically to keep the same aspect ratio no matter how wide it was. So start with the target and work it from there. Some stuff relating to zooming I was trying to do as well, and so on. So that's that. And troubleshooting, JavaScript and whatnot. I was already pretty familiar with this, but it's been good practice throughout these projects to grease the gears a bit. Debuggers are quite nice when you get into them. And I was also relatively familiar with this. It has been fun to look at things like Canvas in this course and passing around events and so forth, and CSS grids and flexboxes are as overpowered as ever. So here's the website. It responds to width. It responds to device theme. And so on. And I have also set it up so it manages touches properly. So here we go, English to Spanish. El Gran Sombrero. Now if I want to do something to French, I could go up here. Does this say baguette? No. What does baguette actually mean? Fair enough. So if I want to translate to, let's say, Finnish, Mika Hakkinen says Sisu means courage. Let's see if that actually is the case. That works too. So double click to zoom in and out. You can pan around with the mouse, etc. And if you want to select with the source ones that way, then you can do that too. So this map actually started just as this. We're a single event listener. And from here, like here's the UK, the parent item to that, has a class ID of GB. And these country codes, I work in the code here. This monstrous, so GB, that is an English speaking country. So when I click that in here, select something else first, it selects all the other English speaking countries at the same time. So that's the general gist of how that works. It's just event listeners and traversing the DOM to find the last one before its parent is the root SVG. Going on to the rest of the code, HTML, it's nothing special except the map thing is empty because this SVG here uses the same guts as the HTML. So what I do is load up a DOM parser, load up the SVG, and parse it into DOM objects, then just append it directly onto the page. So I don't have to embed these 3,000 lines of code in the HTML, I can just load them in at runtime. Let's see, what else? UI, that handles the text boxes. Utilities. Here's a timeout based test for whether an event is a double click or not. So a single click is just that. But a double click does this. What else we got? event listeners. Here's the actual guts of the API. This I didn't end up using because I know whether it's actually English or not, so I don't need an API to tell me that. But here, it takes information from the form, the text, the source and target languages, passes it along to the API URL in a post, and receives the response. And from there, okay, so anything else that's worth noting? Oh yeah, I should talk about this database some more. So here's the language code, here's all the countries, and here's the text version of the language code. So I can go from language code to list of countries, or any one of these countries to a specified language, back and forth. I have functions for that somewhere down here. Market countries. Oh, what's that? Ah yes, find data from country, find data from language, basically just filters, and then it returns based on that. This is an array inside of an array inside of an array. So I don't know what that counts for, but this was really fun to set up, as you can imagine. Init page, that just calls all the functions, that enables all the event listeners, runs the DOM parser. I have some style sheets here that respond to, because as the page resizes, this needs to stay the same height relative to the width. It needs to keep the same aspect ratio. So it does do that. Even when it's zoomed in, it still does that. And I've put a bunch of JS stock in this, so what I haven't explained should be mostly self-explanatory. This is mostly zoom stuff that only made things more complicated because the double-click zoom works well enough. Zoom in, it adds a class called zoomed to the CSS that just tells it whether to cap the width on the SVG or not. Because by default it's max width 100, but once it's zoomed in it can be a lot wider, or it can just be as wide as it wants to be. And I think that should cover most of it. Oh yeah, I have safety checks in here to make sure that if something's already marked as the language, pressing it again doesn't change anything, because, and most importantly, I can't set the same source as both the same language, so I can't translate to English from English because that wouldn't make any sense, so there's handlers for that. But I can also force disable it because when I'm first initializing the page, all the background data for that isn't in place, so yeah, right now this is looking at English, and this one's looking at Spanish, and it reads these data codes out of the HTML. And I think that will about do it. Thank you for your time.